Welcome everybody, and today I'll be playing another battle of NTW3 mod for Napoleon Total War, and this will be the Battle of Marengo. It's a 3v3 and we have about 30,000 Austrians which will be attacking. As you can see, they're all laid out beautifully. A couple of bridges to cross, main force over the river, and they will be attacking against about 22,000 French under, of course, Napoleon. And this one is quite a large battle, and the plan for the Austrians at the beginning, as you can see, there's lots of victory points to go for. It's quite a strategic map. It's a beautiful map if you look at the layout of it. It's quite a large map, and there's lots of places to move basically and try and outflank the enemy. That was the original plan. Gonna stretch left towards La Barbota and right towards Marengo itself, and over to Spinetta on the right. The French will try and delay. As you can see, all of the French reinforcement time is there. They will feed lots of forces on throughout the battle, whereas the Austrians don't have that many reinforcements. They get to move the bulk of their army at the beginning. It's there on the offensive. But the map is, as you can see, full of woods, streams. There's a few roads, but obviously if you're marching down those, they'll be very easy to hold with small forces. Another defensive choke point there. But there's lots of woods, not so much wide open. There is once you break through this initial wooded area. As you can see from the waterline there to the streams, it's very tough going. So it could well turn into a bloodbath, and we'll see how it goes. So let's start the battle. And originally, as you can see, the Austrians are going to try and utilise the roads as best they can. March down in columns.
This building has fallen to the enemy.
As the French take the first of what will be many defensive choke points. Have Victor's division. One small artillery battery just holding the road. Might only look like one gun, but against infantry that can hold quite a long time and do a lot of damage. So we're going to continue pushing forward. We're going to scout with the cavalry, so we don't know what's through the woods. And we're just going to arrange the first forces to try and attack the first choke point, while the rest of the army marches to the front. Very slow going over here, so it will take us a while to form up. But the forward advance guards got orders to try and push this choke point. I think they've taken that order a little bit too literally. And they think it's probably not a good idea. So as you can see, it is a massive map, and the French forces will be arriving all the way back. You can see the French line of communication at the rear, but there's lots of victory points to try and take. But first we have to get to the town of Marengo. But as you can see, this is quite a choke point they've got here. Austrians just threatening with some cavalry, maybe going for the guns, and they're going to charge it, just to try and get rid of it. Which they have successfully. French form square. It's only a small scout cavalry. Now the advance guard is just trying to envelop around the first defensive point. Still the Austrians move up. It's going to take them a long time. But can the French hold on? For the French, it's all about time. They need time for their reserves to move up. As you can see, 85, and you've got to wait 70, 55, 50, 35, 25 for the reserves before they can move. That's not when they arrive at the front. That's when you can actually move them. They arrive actually on the field. And we've got French line 4. Long range, they're starting, they're not holding fire. And we've got Austrian skirmishers moving up against the massed French rank. And we have the first sign, Austrian scouts seen French columns arriving at the field. And this is the rest of Victor's division. Looks like 6 battalions. Don't see any cavalry support or artillery. But can they get there before the French lose the strong point? Looks like cavalry are coming to threaten the flank. So the French are pulling back to the house. Austrian column. That's just holding there. Doesn't know what's in front of it. So it's just holding the road to Castel Ciriolo, just in case any French come from that way. Doesn't want to push too far on its own. Any cavalry out there could basically wreck an infantry battalion. And the first French columns are arriving at the front. This was one of the first historical battles us guys that got together played, so we are a little bit sketchy on the rules. As you can see there, I think there's 2 units of infantry gone into that house. The rule states that only 1 can at a time, so there's a slight oversight there. Makes it doubly hard to take. But we've got artillery just arriving at the front. As more French columns are arriving at the same time. Lots of Austrian cavalry. That looks like it's spreading out on the left to try and take some ground. The advance guard of the Austrians is having to pull back with the arrival of the French. As you can see, the massive field looking from the French side, all the Austrian army arriving. It's going to take them a while to cross the bridges through the streams and get to the front. But we have no idea what's the other side of these woods because of the fog of war. And we have more French columns arriving. We have more arriving. With the French cavalry. And the Austrians forming line. So with the French strong point there, looks like the Austrians are forming to the left and to the right, held in by the river to the right, and the woods to the left. We could stretch out along this road and try and take more victory points that way, which could be a good idea. Try and stretch a smaller French force wide. But it looks like both armies have been pulled into this one strong point. And it's raging all along the front. Looks like it's just the French division of Victor at the moment. And we have more French cavalry arriving, which will probably put a stop to the advance through the woods. So let's concentrate on the right side. The Austrians are getting outflanked at the river. And the Grenzers are broken, outflanked by massed infantry ranks. As the French form on the right. So they can't push through the woods here because of the cavalry. Austrians try to set up artillery, stabilise the line. The charge over on the right against French form square. Caught one battalion out, but one's managed to get in. It'd be a good time now to bring the infantry up and shoot into the square. Looks like that's what he's doing. And we have an Austrian square in the woods to stop flank attack from the French cav. The artillery set up. The Austrian line's becoming a bit ragged, whereas you can see the French line is a lot more stable, more compact units of infantry. And that's the Austrian artillery started to open up. This is where the close quarter musket dueling's happening. You see the French have got reserves. They're rotating the line. Got fire at will off, obviously, so we don't get friendly fire. That can be devastating. And already we're getting a lot of death mounting up here already. Another line breaks in the intense musketry. French cavalry attacking through the woods. They've broken the 1st battalion to go through. So as you can see, the line stretching from Labobotte all the way through to the river. It's just that small frontage which is what the French want to hold. They don't want the Austrians to break out on either side. The French doing a good job of leading the Austrians, holding them where they are. French are even advancing, slightly taking more ground. Both sides pouring it on. The Austrians are still waiting for these reserves to come to the front. And at the moment we have a bit of a stalemate, but if you look at it, does look amazing, all the smoke straight down the line. French are suffering a lot of casualties, that's for sure, and we've got a cavalry charge maybe. French dragoons bringing them up, support the infantry. To me like it's a game for the Austrian guns. And he's got that. It's very important to take out the enemy artillery when you can. We've got a square formed. Canister being fired. Counter Austrian cavalry charge. It's a very aggressive push by the French.
Our men are running, sir.
We have a bit of a hole in the Austrian line. Are the French going to push through maybe? They do have reserves. Looks like they were set to push left, but now maybe pulled back into the middle. An Austrian cavalry charge, counter-charging the French line. French in turn.
Our men are running.
Following up with a counter-charge. More Austrian cav pushed in. I think the Austrians need to now just slow down and stabilise the line.
Been killed. This is a black day.
Austrians have lost one general in that attack. Still a war of attrition on the right. More Austrian cavalry being thrown in.
Our men are running, sir.
In turn, that's been repelled. Looks like these guns may be working on this battalion. Yeah. Yeah, broke that battalion, and the French, seeing that the damage is done, they're pulling back now, probably shortening the line. Austrians just poked some battalions through the woods. French cavalry holding there. Let's see how it's going on the right. And you can see by all the dead bodies, it's been quite a fight, and we haven't even got past the first defensive point yet. Austrians have stabilised the line again. And if you look at an overview view, it's still at that defensive choke point. More Austrian reserves being pushed in. Still more by the bridges waiting to hit the front. But the Austrians have to keep the pressure up. We've got 68. And Lanz has entered the field. He'll be on his way somewhere. He's not in sight just yet. The French have done a good job so far of holding on the front, buying that time. Still have quite a few battalions left. A lot of Victor's division is still combat worthy. They have lost a lot of men, but so have the Austrians. Some may be coming back. If they can reform the line in the back, they can push it back in. Because of the time of the battle and the speed of these historical battles, you do have lots of time to reform the line, let them rest, bring them back in again. And it looks like we have a massive cavalry engagement on the far left. The terrain won't be helping with cavalry engagements.
The men are
as you can see all the little
fatigued, sir, and must
streams
rest a while.
and the woods. have a negative impact on all the cavalry and the speed. They are supported by a couple of Austrian battalions. As you can see, they're trying to stretch the French out, push through the left, get in behind and maybe envelop. But that is one massive cavalry battle right there.
The men are fatigued, sir, and must rest awhile.
So the Austrians reforming on the right. Got some Austrian cav that's breaking. But I think with the help of these Austrian battalions shooting into the French cav, it's really slow through these streams. I think the numbers will tell eventually. And now the Austrians have broke through the woods.
We have taken a building, sir.
And they've taken another building, they've pushed through. And that could be a pretty good strong point there on this flank. It's behind the enemy lines. French cav is coming in. It's too late, they're already in the house. How's the massive cavalry battle? It looks like the Austrians, through pure will and numbers, broke them. And now with this victory point going, it looks like the French have to decide whether to hold on. As you can see, being outflanked on the right, or whether to pull back. Might be an idea to pull back to Marengo along the woods. Maybe that way, snake it down to that building. But I think they're happy with the position they're in. They do look quite strong. And all that French cavalry has been broken. Looks like that'll be leaving the field. The Austrians have decided they're just going to stay at distance on the right and use their artillery to break down some of this French infantry. And we've got columns moving out now to outflank them. So they have to make a decision to make, whether to pull back or not. That's now opened up the whole field. Again, the Austrians, do they move on? Take some victory points? That's the choice. Spread out. Or do they go to destroy the army en masse? It looks like that's what they're doing. Trying to get into the rear of the French. Looks like with the loss of all that French cavalry of Murat on the right, they do lack a bit of cavalry. which makes them susceptible to the Austrian cavalry. And the Austrians are now pushing through the woods. Probably the first time these French are seeing them because of the fog of war. And yeah, because of that they're pulling back. They're having to refuse flank. Left one brave battalion out there, like a sore thumb. Just buying a bit more time. It will take a little bit for the Austrian columns to march through, as it's a wooded area. And as you can see, the French have reformed a new defensive line. Still Victor's division. Done an excellent job of holding out, delaying the Austrians. So we've had Victor's division, we've had Murat's cavalry, although most of that's been lost now. Looks like most of the Austrian army has arrived at the front. They still have columns in the back, but they are quite scattered. They've taken a bit of a beating. We've got some more French cav maybe going for the charge, some hussars, a bit like dragoons, and yeah. Again, another massive cavalry battle. More Austrians coming in.
Our men are running, sir.
Mostly light dragoons. They are being supported by a couple of battalions. The Austrians are across the river. See, they've bent the French back on themselves. Got a bit of a fish hook defence. More French cav go in. And there I think the Austrians have just lost the cavalry advantage. French cav shooting from the saddle. But they have got a new defensive line. Set up just there, just in the distance to say that we've got more columns coming in from Lannes division, just arriving on the field. You can see they left at 70, we're on 57 now. It's taken them 30 minutes to get to the front. They're not quite there yet. It's quite a powerful division. But the Austrians are set to receive them.
Our men are running, sir.
Another French cavalry charge. Austrians have got a square set up. All this is biding more time for the French reinforcements that are arriving. The Austrians better get set up quick. Got a nice little defensive position. Got a wood line. Small stream, defensive house, but it doesn't look like there's too much in reserve, and that's a fresh division of Lannes that is arriving. Looks like the Austrians have formed up again to try another push. We need to break these as quick as we can. As you can see,
Our
it's
men are
Lands
running,
division
sir.
and the defensive V shape before Marengo. So we've got two separate fights. Maybe the French can link up. Some of these French battalions have taken quite a lot of casualties. And it could be that the French columns are moving in this direction. Austrians still trying to form the line around the house. And the French columns are moving forward. It's fresh to the battle. At this point it looks like it could go either way. Can the French hold the Austrians at the front? Can the Austrians hold this defensive line against the new battalions? The French are having to pull back further and further against the tide of Austrians. French go for a quick sneak attack on the house, but they realise they're going to lose a lot of men that way. Pull back a little. They've got no artillery support against the house. Not much cavalry support for a mixed arms attack. Got no cavalry to put the infantry in square and follow up with the infantry.
Our men are running, sir.
And they're going all in against that house. They realise the house is the main point, main focal point. The attack has faltered a little bit. They have to form square because of the French cavalry. You see by all the bodies that the Austrians have lost a lot of troops. They haven't got that much
The
in
men
reserve.
are fatigued, sir, and must rest a while.
The French have failed to cap the house. With the fresh battalions, Lands division, they're having to pull back to reform. And they've got a defensive line now along the woods. Some grenadiers. As the French try and push through to relieve Victor's division at the front. As you can see, the two divisions are trying to link up. But are being stopped in the tracks. Austrian artillery is being brought up to hit these battalions. And the French have been stopped by that choke point as well. So we have a bit of a stalemate. But these French need to be broke. The artillery is hammering these lines. Austrian cavalry charge, but the square's made just in time. Another cavalry charge. This time that battalion doesn't get in square and they break straight away. And this is combined arms because that battalion has formed square. It's repelled the cavalry, but now they can get charged by infantry in square. Meanwhile, the cavalry charges on, hits the flank of this battalion. They were in column, so they can form square. They are wavering,
Our men are
and they break because they didn't form square in time, which is how it should be. Cavalry with infantry support carry on charging down the line. More infantry can give that square the bayonet. So even though the French are trying to force through, they're stopped at the woods. It looks like the Austrians have finally got the upper hand. French are now having to move troops to the left to support their right by the house, which now means that the Austrian right can move in. And we've got an Austrian battalion realise this is not a taken choke point by the French, so they're going to move into that, stop the French from coming round. This farmhouse still in Austrian hands. Let's try and squeeze the French from this one. Putting up a good fight. Bloody good fight. But they are being whittled down. That the Austrians are giving another attack into the house, which fails. not a good idea to try and take a house, strong point, until you've cleared the area around it. This player is learning that the hard way.
We've taken a building, sir.
And the Austrians have now taken that, which I think the French have overlooked. It's now half the battle gone, 45. And the guard will be on the move, the French guard. That will have arrived at the field. The Austrians can't see it yet. Or can they? It's like Desailly's division. That's arriving on the field. The numbers are stacking up for the French. It's been an epic battle for this choke point at the front. But finally the French look like they're getting whittled down, but I think the job has been done as more French reinforcements arrive on the field. Small Austrian battalion to charge down the guns. As you can see now, this French force almost totally surrounded. This French division was unable to meet up with them. Stopped at the wood line. Possible the French could have pulled back down that road. And now they're getting attacked by cavalry, getting cut down. There's nowhere left for them to go. Another battalion breaks. But a fresh division has arrived under Desailly. We have an Austrian charge from the rear. Which breaks that French battalion instantly. And the French are giving it one last charge.
The men are fatigued, sir, and must rest a while.
But they're surrounded on all sides. And there's only the French in the house that remain. So it's taken half the battle just to take that first choke point, and I think the French can consider that a victory when you look at the cost, the Austrian cost for that one choke point. I think we could have played that one better. We should have maybe marched out to the victory points more, played it for victory points, not a destroy the army game, which is what it basically has turned into. And the French have noticed this house was taken and they intend to take it back. I think there's only one small battalion in there, so it shouldn't be a problem. It's a fresh division. As you can see, the Austrian cavalry just chasing the French routers, just cutting them down. And we have another French push maybe. So the fresh division of Dessay, looks like they're moving out to the left of Marengo, while Lannes division holds the right. It will take the Austrians a while to reorganise after such a brutal battle.
Our men are running, sir.
Around the first choke point. The French have taken the house, farmhouse in Marengo. I think you can see why in the real battle of Marengo, Napoleon thought he'd lost the battle early and then came back to win it later in the day. As more and more fresh units arrive. If you look at the overview, a new defensive line has now been brought. Again, I think in this battle the victory points were slightly overlooked. We need 5. There's only really 1 that's been got. Could have stretched out to get more, stretched the French out more. But it did get sucked into this death match around Marengo. The Austrians try another outflanking on the far right. As the French left fresh forms a new line, and the Austrians try to reorganise what army they've got left. Again, Austrian cavalry attack this French battalion, which is broken. Still trying to break this French right. It's been engaged for a while now. More French cav come in, looks like that's the guard. We have 2 French squares that are vulnerable now. Put into square by cavalry, which is withdrawn. Looks like they're pulling back. Heavy casualties though. On the left, no French cavalry, just the fresh division moving forward, column. The Austrians desperately try and form a line. They do have the cavalry, but they'll have to use them correctly. French have seen the threat on the right, and they're having to again refuse flank. But if another French division is forthcoming from the reserves, I think the Austrians could be in trouble.
The men are fatigued, sir, and must rest a while.
So they're pulling back on the right, pushing forward on the left. French columns on the far left, they're ready to square if they need to, and they are, because of the threat of cavalry. Protects the flank. And now the newly arrived French cav has moved to their left against this Austrian cav that's threatening. And they're charging on the left. Some newly arrived hussars. Against some tired light dragoons. They've been caught out. Hussars shatter. Some chasseurs de cheval think about going in. They change their mind. They are exhausted. They've come a long way across the field. And that gives the Austrians time to reorganise. Mixed troops from different divisions. Fresh division from Dessay. And the Austrians pushing on the French right. But what's that we see in the distance? Some more of Dessay's division arriving on the field. With what could possibly be the guard. Yeah. As you can see, they entered the battlefield at 50. It's taken them almost 20 minutes to get anywhere near the front. But as the Austrians push, looks like the guard's going to arrive to outflank them just in time. Meanwhile, the fight is at distance on the left. So even after almost 3/4 of the battle, you can see it's still pretty even. That's why I do like these reinforcement timers. They're always timed to sort of arrive just in time. Make the battle very dynamic. And the Austrians now are scraping for any battalion that they can. The Austrians now, through the fog of war, see the guard arriving. Coming to a bit of confusion, probably not sure whether to attack or fall back. At this point we see a battalion moving to take a victory point. It's probably a little bit too late. That would still only be 2. I'd have to come around to Villanova. And that would only be 3. They need at least 4 for a marginal victory, but this battle's definitely turned into a deathmatch battle somewhere along the way. Still only 50-50, I'd say. But with the French fresh division arriving, that could be enough to turn it. I think maybe if the Austrians had held on to the town of Marengo, it may have stopped the French from being to defend on this line. We've got skirmishes on the far left. I mean, these Austrian battalions do look a bit battered against the French division, I have to say, but they do have artillery, so you can use it correctly. And it looks like they're opening up into the French cavalry, which is a good choice. Very vulnerable against artillery, and they're pulling back because of it. More Austrian artillery being brought up on the left. Looks like some of the guard has gone to reinforce the French right. And others moving to the French left. So they're splitting the guard up. I don't think either side knows whether they want to attack or defend at this point. They're just probing. Got some skirmishes out front for the French. We got new artillery. Oh, it's howitzer. Arriving at the front. I think the Austrian guy over here's got to be very careful with his morale. Against these French infantry, he's got to be pretty intelligent with it. Got another battalion of French that's broken. Division victors, so they've been fighting since the beginning, so that's not a surprise. The French finally got an artillery piece, which they seem pretty short of in this battle. But you can see the Austrians have a full artillery battery, which is hitting the French cav, and that's broke them. I think the Austrians are tentatively pushing on this side. You see a slight weak point in the French numbers. Quite small battalions. There's a lot of heavy fighting. And here we have the French. 3 French fresh battalions. And they instantly receive artillery fire. French cav swinging round to the left to face off against the Austrian cav. Now at this point we noticed that, as I say, this was one of the earliest HB battles that we played and some of the rules we were a bit sketchy on, so I think it is quite important if you're going to play these HB games that you do read the rules. They're all on there to read in the menu. We did send a unit all the way around to try and take the French LOC, but as you can see there, you need to take a minimum of 5 victory points, including Marengo and the other one, to be able to take the LOC. So you can't take the LOC before you take the previous 5. It stops scenarios like this when you just try and sneak a unit round, so that's important to know. And the French Cavs charging against one squadron of Austrian cavalry, bringing the other one in, but it might be too late, and it is. And they also break an Austrian line. Can the second cavalry save this push? No, they've gone as well. And that is not good for the Austrian right. I think they got caught out there a bit. And now the French are going to try and take this battery as well. It's been caught in the open. The push here has whittled a few French away. They are pushing. And we've got some more Desay's division in column. I think that's fresh units coming onto the field, pushing against the Austrian left. And this, I think, is where it's really starting to tell number-wise, reinforcement-wise on the field. The Austrians have just lost, as you can see, just moving those battalions they may have forgotten about. They lost so many men around this part, we should have just probably avoided it. It looks like the Austrians are looking thin on the ground now. They've had to form square from the French cavalry, which is threatening. And over on the Austrian left, they're bracing for the columns of Desay that have just arrived. Still pushing in the centre. But the Austrians really do need, after the loss of those units, to reorganise this flank. And they need to set this artillery up as quick as they can to strengthen the defensive line, but it doesn't look like they're doing it in time. As the French lines move on, these squares won't hold against concentrated muskets, but they have to form square because of the cavalry. But they're starting to run. All along this right flank. He needs to get those cannons unlimbered. The Austrian right cavalry is attacking against the square, which is wavering, but they've got the strength for the infantry. They're starting to run. 2 battalions that are brought up from the rear. And over on the far left, we've got French columns advancing. All fresh. And they're pouring it on. Stabilise the line. Even though these Austrians look like they're winning, they may have to pull back. The Austrians are trying to do an organised defence. Form the line in defence to pull the first line back behind. And the Austrians are in full retreat on the right. Totally disorganised now. As you can see on the large map, the state of play. The French are pushing hard now. I don't think the Austrians have got much in reserve, if anything. They're going to try and hold on to what they've got. Victory point wise, seems like they've only got the one. As you can see, they need 4 for a marginal victory. Still have the odd artillery piece, which is still breaking the odd battalion, French battalion, if it gets too close. The Austrians reform again. Should have put an infantry unit in there, I think. It looks like the French have got one anyway. Certainly one battalion in there. They've managed to shorten the front, but they've got so many people, so many disorganised infantry battalions that have fled the fight. And the Austrian line, again trying to use the woods and the farmhouse as a defensive point. Trying to do it in an organised way. Obviously these 3 battalions are just trying to buy time to organise defence, but these French columns look pretty unstoppable. Over on the right, it's not looking good at all. They're streaming off the field. Another battalion breaks. As you can see, it looks like the Austrian right flank has gone. Totally disorganised, morale's totally gone. But they have managed to form a defensive line on the left against these French columns that are coming in. Confident now that the left is secure. The Austrians are running from the field. Surely it's only a matter of time. Can the artillery steady the line?
We have killed their general, sir. Now they must break.
The French have already taken this farmhouse once. It's been fought over a couple of times. As the columns close in, mass ranks against the line of the Austrians. And French cavalry's charging the artillery. They don't quite reach it though, they break before they get there. And there's a mass charge on the right. Austrian cavalry, Austrian infantry. There's grenadiers in there. Austrian cavalry. And the French are breaking.
Our men are running first.
They're all breaking, surely they can't pull this off now. Austrians still have some grenadiers, but they broke that flank. The French are running, they've had to form square. You see the overlook there. French have totally broken the Austrian right. But in a counter move, the Austrians have come out of the woods with bayonets.
The men are fatigued.
Charged straight into the French. Now we've only got the columns of Desailly's division. But I'm not sure the Austrians have got enough troops left to take advantage of the breakthrough. Looks like they may be going for another bayonet charge. There, the French charging.
Our men are running first.
The French counter-charge, fresh units. Let's break the Austrians. Swinging one way then the other.
Our men are running first.
And the French have held firm. And they've managed to bring now cavalry over from the left. Battalions from the French left are now coming over. It's a brave counter-attack by the Austrians, but it looks like it's all to no avail. French cavalry now coming in. They break the Austrian square. With more and more French infantry battalions coming in behind the line. The Austrian Army's got nowhere left to go. Only 10 minutes remaining. And it looks like the Austrian Army is going to be wiped from the field. It's been an absolutely brutal battle. It was not the open, manoeuvrable battle that it could have been, but it all got dragged into the centre. It ended up being a death match for these 4 points. And now the Austrians just have this one artillery battery, about 4 battalions, one in the house. That artillery battery, just one gun can still do damage. Don't think this Grenza battalion is long for this world. But that one gun has broke that one battalion. That's the power of canister.
The entire unit is left.
French are now charging the house. It's mayhem. The battalions have arrived from the French left. There's a couple of times during the battle when I thought the French have lost it.
Our men are running, sir.
But in the end, the French reinforcements and the numbers and the amount of men the Austrians lost at the beginning were just too much. One last canister fire, but now the Austrian Army gets overrun.
The entire unit is dead, sir.
Even the generals got off the field. So if we look at the overall battle, as you can see now, there's nothing left of the Austrian Army. They still hold that house, but it isn't even a victory point. There's nothing left. And as you can see from the start of the battle, the casualties that were taken all the way along the first engagement. The troop losses are immense. First outflanking by the Austrians around the first farmhouse, the losses that were taken, all the cavalry through the woods, and around this house definitely, around this farmhouse. Just look at the death and destruction, and over on this flank as well. So the French used choke points very well, made it hard for the Austrians to break out of the bottleneck. Very good play by the French, very good play with the reinforcements and the usage of them. And in the end, the Austrians just bled out. Not enough troops left. Brilliant game. Very good map. Thanks again to Desay for this NTW3 mod, historical battles, Napoleons Eagles, and hopefully I'll have the Battle of Quatre Bras for you up next very shortly. Thanks for watching.